Hey, Inspired Moneymaker. On this episode, we're exploring the entrepreneur's mindset, from solving for better ways to string Andre Agassi's tennis rackets to building an AI-powered filmmaking platform. Episode 252 features Jay Schweid, entrepreneur, CEO of Ephelants.
I had and have friends that are way more experienced in everything that I do than I am, and in film, and some that worked at studios, some that had big production companies, some that won Academy Awards or whatever other awards. And I was like, what is the problem? Like, why is this such a mess? Like, Jay, that's just the way it is. We just deal with it. It's a mess, but and that answer, that's just the way it is just the worst answer anybody can give me. I mean, that's how I started my tennis business. I was like, why do people string rackets like this? Well, that's just the way it is. And I was like, nope.
I'm Andy Wong, host of the Inspired Money podcast, where we share positive perspectives on money so we can make a bigger impact in our communities and in the world. This episode is brought to you by my company, Runnymede Capital Management. As of this recording, stocks are in a bear market, global economies are slowing, and consumers are pulling back their spending. If you need help with financial planning, your investments, or setting up a 401k retirement plan for your business, schedule a call with me by going to inspiredmoney.fm/call. That's inspiredmoney.fm/CALL. We're a fee-only, family-owned financial advisor. Schedule a no-obligation call today to review your portfolio and objectives. I met today's guest, Jay, on LinkedIn, where he's very active and always sharing his positivity on the subjects of entertainment, media, tech, hospitality, impact, and philanthropy. He founded JCS, a bespoke tennis racket stringing service for the world's top-ranked players, including John McEnroe, Andre Agassi, Gabby Sabatini, and more. Get this, his company was the official racket service of the US Open and the US Davis Cup teams. His entrepreneurship extends well beyond tennis. He collaborated with actor and former boxer Mickey Rourke to launch The Spot, a vibrant lounge in South Beach. He's organized and hosted after parties for Madonna's Drowned World Tour in New York City and Miami. Since 2012, Jay has headed Ephelants, an entertainment brand focused on film, commercial, and event production. You're going to hear about a technology platform that he's building to democratize the film production process. In this episode, you'll learn about why Jay got into and left the professional tennis racket stringing business, the mindset that drives entrepreneurs, and make sure you stay tuned to the end to hear how Jay is building philanthropy into his business. Now let's get inspired with Jay Schweid. Jay, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's honored.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
That's a really good question. I don't really think about money, which maybe is not the smartest thing in the world. I don't know if it was money per se, but I do remember fairly early on, there was a kid in, I guess it was nursery or kindergarten, that had like more Batman toys or something than the rest of us. And everybody was like very like jealous, I guess, about it or whatever. And I really wasn't. Like it was cool for sure. And he really did have every Batman toy. But I was just kind of like, okay, cool. And we were friends. So I didn't really have a negative attitude about it per se. So, that's a good question. I guess that's my first thinking of it. Like he was, his parents had money and so they were able to buy him more toys.
Did you grow up in Manhattan? What was life like?
I did. Yeah. I grew up in Upper Manhattan initially. And then we moved to Queens. It's interesting asking these topics because it's stuff that I just don't really think about. But, we lived in an apartment at first when we lived in Manhattan. And then we moved to Queens and we lived in a house for a little while, which was totally different. And then we moved to an apartment. So it's always been interesting. I mean, I was raised Orthodox Jewish. So there were certain experiences in that. I mean, I was in that community, not Hasidic, for those who don't know, not like Hasidic, like we didn't wear the hat or anything like that, but I was Orthodox. I mean, I observed Sabbath, I only ate kosher, all that sort of stuff. So we were within our community, but we were around others. It wasn't like some sects that are just within their community. They never interact with others. We were totally interacting with everybody. But you do feel those things, you feel there's a difference. And you just don't really know why or what, but you just kind of navigate that. So I think being in New York was very cool because I got to see everything, and I just became open and accepting of all sorts of different things.
Over time, did you reach a point where you were not thinking about like feeling different and what other people think? Do you still practice the Sabbath and the practices the way that you did growing up?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So, I don't know. Do you feel different? I mean, yeah, you feel different. I mean, at times, there's no question. I think, and I think as society and things we're going through right now, everything's very polarized. Things come up, really big. I mean, I literally I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw there's some part of some state, I don't even want to call it out, they're going to be allowed to put a sign in the store that says no Jews allowed in America in 2022. I just don't even know what to say to that, really. So, but I don't feel it in that, like, I don't feel ostracized. I don't feel like, and I've had heard, people say things like, you're never going to get this because of that, and so on and so forth. And I was like, really? Let's just try and stop me. So I just kind of have always navigated. My father always taught me that, you work hard, and if you're a good person, you're respectful. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. He did purposely name me Jay as opposed to my Hebrew name, Isaac, just to kind of, he went through the Holocaust, he went through the war. So just to protect me a little bit, that I wouldn't automatically be known as Jewish and that wouldn't hurt me in some way. But from a very early age, I just navigated it. Like, I just, it's what it is. And so, yeah, I just kind of plow through life and do it and do the best I can. And at the same time, I think maybe because of that, I'm more open to others. I may be open to other religions, much more so, other minorities or whatever, however you want to associate. I don't really think about those things. So I think maybe that did teach me that a little bit.
Yeah, you know how it is to feel different, so you tend to have a compassion for other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Jay, I think in your LinkedIn bio, it says serial entrepreneur. I just know that you've had many diverse businesses. Does entrepreneurship run in your family?
No. Actually, I'm not a single thing I've done or do runs in my family at all, like anywhere. I was, as an athlete, nobody in my family was an athlete. There was one other cousin that was into sports, very, very into sports.
For you, this was tennis.
But as a kid, I played everything. When I was captain of the basketball team, not that no one's going to compare me to LeBron, but I was captain of the basketball team. I played football, I played baseball, I played, whatever. And then at a certain point, I gravitated towards tennis, partially because I felt I was in control of the environment to a certain extent. Like, I couldn't be like, I threw that pass and he blew it, or the play was set up perfectly and the guy dropped the ball or whatever. In tennis, like, if I missed a shot, I missed a shot. There wasn't anybody else to blame but me. So, and I just loved the strategy and the fitness, and I just loved everything about it at the time. But my father didn't know anything about sports. I couldn't turn to anybody in the family. They all went through very traditional things. I mean, again, not to be stereotypical, but of course, I've got doctors, lawyers, someone in the diamond business. It's just whatever. It's very stereotypical New York, but it's just a fact. And over time, some of my cousins' children have gone into other more creative fields, but not a lot of entrepreneurship, not a lot of starting a business from scratch and turning it into something. or creating that sort of thing. I guess all I had was that my father just, being supportive and understanding, and open-minded. But I didn't have anything like family-wise to look at for that. No.
Was there any pressure to follow a more conventional path coming from your parents?
Not from no. I mean, I was raised by my dad, so not from him. I felt it a little bit from my cousins, but I'm also the youngest by far of any of my cousins, so I didn't feel it there. I'm not that kind of guy that cares. Everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that. Good, cool. That's awesome. I just don't care. I do things the way I think. I don't do it I don't do it. I'm not different to be different. I just do what it feels right to me, and I feel that's the way to go. And if other people don't like it or don't agree, I mean, that's okay.
Tennis seemed like a pretty big part of your life, and you said that you don't tend to think a lot about money. What's your thinking as far as starting businesses? Because looking at your like LinkedIn bio, to me, it kind of stands out that you're good at aligning things that you're passionate about and then creating businesses so that those things are aligned in your life.
Yeah, I probably would be better if I did think about the money first. But I guess everything that I've done was because it's something that had to be done. Like I didn't get into what I did in the tennis world because I wanted to do it. There was a need for something to happen. There was an issue that had to be fixed, so I fixed it. And I think everything that I work towards is that. Like I'm always at my core thinking of other people and how do I help them. I'm not thinking necessarily about me. How do I do this thing to make a lot of money? Like I'm not thinking like that. Granted, those things can make a lot of money, and that's great. I mean, that's fantastic and that's awesome. But I think when you, I think as a business in general, if you're thinking about the money first, I don't really think that's the best strategy. I think you have to think about people, about purpose, about what good are you doing in the world, and then from there, I think logically, yes, you have to do other things. You have to be smart with money. You have to raise money. You have to spend wisely. You have to invest wisely and all other things. But if that's your first thought, I don't think that works that well. It does for some people, but I wouldn't feel good doing that.
Yeah, in interviewing various entrepreneurs who have started businesses, it seems like at the core, it's got to be about, being excited about solving some kind of problem. And then the money comes later.
I think that's true. But I think you're hitting it on the head of what an entrepreneur is, and I really don't like using that word. I mean, obviously I had something to do with my bio, but I tend to ask other people to help me do that. And they're like, "Oh, well, you're a serial entrepreneur." I was like, first of all, I don't even know what that means, and second of all, search that on LinkedIn, and you're going to find 10 million, or more. So what does it mean anymore? But I think you're hitting it on the head. I think an entrepreneur. Well, for me, I've always said, an entrepreneur is waking up every day not knowing if you're going to be homeless or billionaire. And if you can't do that, then you're out. Like get a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's honorable to have a job. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you can't live with that, and you just don't do it. But I think that's what it is. I think you're right. I think there's an entrepreneur is somebody who just has that drive. Like there's something, I have to do this. It's not a choice. I have to do this thing because it needs to happen, which could very well be there's no place to get this kind of food in my town. That's fine. But just opening up a restaurant is not making you an entrepreneur. Opening up a dry cleaner does not make you an entrepreneur. But it's like, well, there's this drive, like there's this issue. I have to fix it. I have to help my neighborhood. I have to help these people. Then you come up with other things that are, sometimes you come up with something revolutionary. Sometimes you don't. But I think you're right. I think that's the core of it, is that there's this feeling inside that you can't control it to a certain extent. And you put that energy towards doing something good.
Jay, can you talk a little bit about what it was like stringing rackets and working at such a high level? Like you were working with the best players in the world, and I don't know, just please me, because I had a tennis racket stringing business when I was young, but I never strung John McEnroe's racket or Jim Courier's racket or Yannick Noah's racket. But those were the guys that I was watching on TV. So I've got some like envy looking at your
Well,
past.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Yeah, I mean, look, I was a player initially, so that's how I started it. I started the business as a way to make money to stay on tour. I wasn't doing it to start a business. So I really had no experience when I dropped out of high school. I had no experience. I had no business understanding whatsoever. I just saw the way rackets were being strung, and I'm like, this makes no sense. Like, this just doesn't make any sense why you're doing it this way. And I looked for different ways and different techniques. And I'll never forget the first time I came up with this technique that I developed, and I strung one of the pros in New York's, pro level, top 100 player, or whatever. And I strung his rackets, and he was like, "What did you do to my racket?" And I was like, "Oh shit, sorry." I was like, "I'm in trouble. Like, what did I do?" And he's like, "My racket's never played that well ever. Like, I don't know what you did, but you keep doing it." And it was just part of what I did, I couldn't be in awe of them because then I couldn't help them. And they were really turning to me. It wasn't just stringing. I mean, stringing was certainly part of it, but, we customized their rackets. We designed their rackets. We worked with the racket manufacturers to figure out what the right composition should be. In our office, we developed techniques to fully customize the racket. So every racket they had was identical. Exactly to their spec. They didn't know what we did, but we did it. And I had to be able to go toe to toe with them. I had to get in their face when there was something wrong. I had to be tough and strong about that because I was there to help them. It wasn't because I wasn't being a jerk. My goal was to work with them. So, I mean, our clients won more tournaments than anybody. But the thing that I was really the most proud of, still am, is that our clients had the least amount of injuries to any part that could be affected by their racket. So arm, shoulder, wrist, anything like that. I knew Andre when he was 15, nobody. And we worked together a little bit because I was working with Prince, who he was with, and I was vehemently against what the direction they were going with his rackets. Not Prince per se, they didn't do anything wrong, but the way Bollettieri was advising all this stuff, I was like, this is a problem, a big, big, big problem. This kid is going to get really, really hurt. And they decided not to work with me, and he blew out his wrist. And then afterwards, after surgery, his father called me. He's like, "We need your help." And I worked with him for the rest of his career. That stuff just didn't happen with our clients because we did do that work. So I had to go on court with them. I had to talk to their coaches. I had to talk to their parents. I had to talk to their agents. I had to do all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, looking back, I guess it was really cool. When I did it, it was a grind. It was a lot of work. It was, I remember being at the French Open, going to sleep, not sleeping, a lot of times for the first 4 or 5 days of the tournament. And then in the meat of the tournament, and, if I was with Andre or any other players, I'd get up at 2 a.m, just to get them ready for their matches. And it was craziness. But, I got to see the world. I got to meet some great people. So, no complaints.
It sounds like a lot of work. And at that level, it's high pressure. I mean, you have to have their rackets ready for them for the tournament. The travel alone has got to be wearing physically and mentally.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was pretty much at the end. I mean, I just got to a point that it was just too much. I mean, I was on the road 25 to 35 weeks a year, taking we couldn't take all of, I mean, some of the equipment we had in our office was immovable, but we took, the stringing machines themselves were quite heavy. If I was with Andre, just a one-on-one with Andre, I'd bring, 15 to 20 rackets, all the grips, all the string, all the, everything that I needed. It was a grind. It was a lot of stuff to take, and just not, sometimes you just didn't even know what city you were in, so, just after a while, you just kind of burn out from all of that, same thing, it's really cool when you go to certain places, but the player lounge is another player lounge, and the food that you eat on site is the same food you have to over and over again. But I will tell you, I mean, every year, that first day that I would walk onto the Wimbledon grounds, I still had that feeling. There was just something, walking into Roland Garros that first day, some of those experiences were priceless. So, all in all, it was a quite great journey.
You really got into the science, it sounded like. It's not just a matter of knowing string tension. When you're getting into working with the Prince, the manufacturer of the tennis rackets, and talking about the composites and how that's going to impact a player's physical health.
Yeah, I did. I mean, and nobody did that before us, so it was interesting navigating that, because really I was there just to help everybody. I wasn't there to hurt anybody or anything like that. Some of the people, the top people in the racket companies, were thrilled that I was around. The people that I was dealing with kind of thought I was a threat to their job, which was just not the case. I had no intention of ever taking their jobs. I did what I did. So it was a little tricky at times, and it could get a little awkward. But yeah, I got well underneath all of that stuff. But I also couldn't communicate that. I had to also be able to, and that's kind of helped me, I guess, maybe throughout all the other businesses too. I had to be able to speak the player language, and then I had to be able to speak the racket company language, and I had to speak the agent language. And those are three different languages. I had to be able to get the agent to understand how to work on the deal and not let the player get screwed. I had to deal with the player and their issues, not being highly technical, but knowing what they need. They know when it's right, but they can't necessarily explain it. And then dealing with a racket company they're looking for statistics. They want numbers. They want to well, how do I measure this? And what's the exact, And I had to kind of navigate and kind of go through this. And I would sit in meetings with these guys, and they would sit there, and afterwards, and then I'd say, okay, are we good? Yeah. And I'd say to the players, okay, I got this. And I'd talk to the racket company, we're going to do this. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's not what we said. You're going totally in the opposite direction, because they didn't understand the player language. And I had to then translate that back and make it work. So it was, it was a lot into it.
It sounds like a very challenging game of telephone.
Yeah, it was. It certainly was, yeah.
Jay, was that business at that level, is it lucrative enough where you could have stayed in that career and raised a family?
I mean, I did okay. It was not super lucrative, but I did okay. I had no complaints. But people would say that oh, you got to do this. And people weren't talking about scale so much back then. That's more of a, when the tech world came in, we started talking about scale. Even though we were way ahead of our times with tech. I mean, I developed our first database to do have all the data that we needed to analyze everything. We developed a piece of equipment that we got a patent on. So we were way ahead on the tech side than the tennis world was. But there's only 100 players in the top 100. And that's never going to change. So, and I can't work with all 100 of them. It's just not possible, because one player is not going to want to work with me because I work with somebody else. So, and not that happened very often, but every once in a while it would be that sort of a thing. So how far can it possibly go? And what we did for them, which they needed, they were also not always willing to pay top dollar. They paid well, but not, because they're players. We were the only thing they paid for. I can't do that for an average tennis player, even a really good tennis player. How much money are they going to spend on their rackets? So they're going to customize if they do, 2 rackets a year, 3 rackets a year, maybe. There's not a lot to do there. So the only other way is to say, well, I'll position myself as an expert and I'll make my own rackets, which people suggested too. I was like, okay, well, now I'm competing with all these companies. First of all, that have a shit ton more money than I do. Second of all, I need them because I'm working with them for their player. So if I start competing with them, they're not going to be very helpful to me. So there's kind of no way. Trust me, I circled that. There was no real way to do it. I could do it. I could make a living. It would be fine, and everything would be okay. And there's people that do that, and God bless them for doing that, because I'm not going to do it anymore. But yeah, it's not something where you could be like, you're not retiring and buying an island. That's for sure.
How is it that you stepped away from that? Because it seemed like the timing was such that the world was not as connected as it is today. I saw like sort of hints of like tennis forums where, hardcore tennis fans would be like talking about different people's gear. And they're like, oh, Jay Schweid would be able to answer this question. And then some of them are like, where is Jay Schweid? Where'd he go?
So, yeah, I did. Well, I stepped away as quietly and as respectfully as I could. I basically passed the business on to a guy that I had trained. And I made a partner, and then I said, listen, I'm going to move on. And I went to all the people that worked for me. I was like, listen, guys, if you want to get together and take over, we'll figure it out. I'll work with you on the finances and let's move on. He was the only one who was like, I really want to do this. And he was able to get a friend to help him and to buy the equipment off of me and stuff like that. And I was like, this is fine. And then you continue on. And I stayed for like another year or so working with a couple of guys because he didn't really want to travel that much. And I was still working with Andre and a couple of the players. And I said, all right, I'll do that for like another year or so part-time. It's actually, it's funny you say that. I was at Tribeca Film Festival for a month or two, a couple of months, whatever it was. And when a friend of mine had a movie there and we went there to support, and then we were leaving and I saw the red carpet and I saw McEnroe was there. And I was with my girlfriend and I was like, oh, there's John. And she's like, oh, why don't you say hello? I was like, oh, I haven't seen him in years and he's busy or whatever. She's like, well, we're here. Might as well. I was like, all right, fine, whatever. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And I was like, this is stupid. Let's go. And she's like, come on, 2 more minutes. Sure enough, he walks right by. I was like, hey, John. He was like, first looking, I was like, it's Jay. And he's like, oh my God. Like we started talking like 10 minutes, like picking up just where we left off. And he's like, oh, I heard you went to LA or something. Where are you back in New York? Like, so I was like, how the hell did you even know that? Like, I didn't like call you. I wasn't working with him at the time. He was retired. So apparently they knew little stuff. But I was just like, look, it's all good. And I just kind of gently passed on. And there's some of the people that I'm in touch with. I mean, I'm still friends with Courier and a few other players, over the years that I just was friends with. Like they weren't just clients, like we were just actually friends too. So, but yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm like not hey, everybody look at me, I'm leaving, or hey, it's my birthday. Like that's just not who I am.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives, I think, in Jim Courier's building. This may not be, one, it's not really relevant, but also this was several years ago. I went to like a 4th of July party and, rooftop just hanging out, and people are like, oh, that's Jim Courier. I'm like, that's cool. Anyways, so where do you go from there?
Well, I really wasn't sure what to do, quite frankly. I mean, and I asked a lot of friends. I thought about different things. I mean, when I had the JCS, the tennis company, I also had a concierge service that I had started, and a travel company that I had started while I was there because I was doing the stuff for the players. So I was helping them with dinner reservations and going to clubs and doing all that sort of stuff. But I also added like security and travel and all that sort of stuff that I did. It was another business that I was just kind of like, it's 24/7, like there was no stopping, and it's just kind of a bit of a mess. But those are areas that I was around always, and I knew that world. I understood the celebrity world. I understood the entertainment world, not from a doing it, but I was so around it, and I knew so many other people around it. And so, I mean, the general consensus of friends and advisors were something in entertainment or hospitality was probably the logical place for me to land. Some people said you'd be great at running like a big resort, a big, 5-star resort somewhere. And I was like, yeah, I would see myself like wearing a suit and being a GM at, I just don't see that. That's not my thing. I'm just not the kind of guy to go work corporate. I'm not that kind of guy to work for a big company or doing that sort of stuff. So I started basically a production company. I was thinking about, I had some restaurant ideas, I had some club ideas. And I was just like, let me just start here. I started, production company, and initially not really with no pattern, no path per se, or just I got to do something. Started doing events, which was logical because I'd done those already. From there, we got into doing videos. From there, we did commercials, short films, feature films. all that sort of stuff. Marketing and tech somehow got intertwined into that, just because also that's what I was doing in the past. Um, and that's kind of what became, what Ephelants became. I mean, there was no like, I'm going to start this business and I have a path, and I didn't have that. It was just, let me see where it goes. And then I started seeing, there's a problem here, or there's an opening here, or somebody could use my help there. And then I started just navigating within that space. So, yeah, that's really how it started.
So tell us about Ephelants and one, what the platform does, and specifically, how is AI and blockchain, how is that related?
So Ephelants is the production marketing tech company that I started basically, and we've been doing for 15 years or so. As that evolved, we started getting deeper into feature films and bigger feature films that people were coming to us to do, or ideas that we started having ourselves. And I started looking at that space, which is different. Like being a video production company, being a film company is similar, but very different. And we had some great projects, I thought, and people told me these are really good projects. You really got to get them made. And we were just running into one problem after another. There was just one other issue, one other stumbling block, one other complication. And I kept looking for solutions. I was looking for, there's got to be some tech, or there's got to be somebody who can help me solve this. And, luckily I had and have friends that are way more experienced in everything that I do than I am, and in film, and, some that worked at studios, some that had big production companies, some that won Academy Awards or whatever other awards. And I was like, what is the problem? Like, why is this such a mess? Like, Jay, that's just the way it is. We just deal with it. It's a mess, but and that answer, that's just the way it is just the worst answer anybody can give me. I mean, that's how I started my tennis business. I was like, why do people string rackets like this? Well, that's just the way it is. And I was like, nope. And so that comes to that part of like the need to fix something, or that inherent feeling like I have to do something about it. And that's how I came up with the idea. We started thinking about the idea for this platform that we're working on. So we started seeing it wasn't just us, because we didn't know what we were doing. It was everybody. It was, somebody has this great idea, but they get verification that their script is good, but now they've got 50 other things they have to do. And every new film and every new TV show is a startup. I mean, every one. You start up a brand new company, separate entity. Just because you're experienced or you've been around the business, you may know all the people who do this job or that job. It doesn't mean they're available. It doesn't mean they're the right person for that specific job. You have to go through all these processes all over again. When you have a fashion company, you don't have to do that. Yes, you have to come up with new designs for a new season, but your manufacturers are the same manufacturer for the most part. Your shipping mechanisms, your warehousing, all these other things are pretty much the same. And you fit into that. With film, it's just not the same. And any sort of entertainment, it's not the same. So I started looking at how do you solve these problems? Because just saying I'm going to do it better is ridiculous. So we looked at each specific area, and then saying, okay, well, is there a technology out there that we could use to make that process easier? And if not, is there a way to build that? And we started looking at all of that. And ultimately, what I realized is the fact that it's all disconnected was one of the biggest problems. So the fact that the creative and the finance and the fans are disconnected from one another, the fact that the process that a creative has to go through is every part of it is disconnected, from verifying that your project's a good project, to putting your team together, to finding the money, to putting everything, it's all disconnected, totally different skill sets. And so we started looking at it like, if we connect those things, it becomes easier. Then the creative can be creative, and they can do what they do. And the people that work in film that are business people can focus on the business, not have to worry about the creative, because the creatives have the time and the space to do their thing. So that's basically what we're creating, which we're calling Village. And that will be this platform that will basically take projects from concept to distribution all on one platform, engaging creatives, fans, and investors. So it's the way we look at it is we use technology to make life easier and human interaction to make it better. So anywhere we can implement technology to make that process a little bit more streamlined, removing the bias, bringing in the transparency so that people feel safe and comfortable getting involved, we can basically help everybody. And it creates really, back to the other things I've done, is connecting people, and it creates this global impact of opportunity through storytelling, really, to help people all over the world. And that's really at the core what it's all about.
And there's an element of being able to democratize the process through technology.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you give people opportunities, you give people a voice. There's a limit to that. I mean, you have to be realistic about that. I mean, not you can't go to your fans and say, okay, what color should I use, and get 70 million people saying a different color. You have to kind of look at that and look at those voices and say, okay, let me get that knowledge. Okay, basically, I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm learning something from that. But you definitely can make it a lot better than the way it is of like, I'm the boss and I say this is the way this works. That doesn't work anymore. So you hear that term, we hear that with blockchain, and we hear that with the metaverse, and we hear that with NFTs, democratizing it. And I had this conversation with somebody just yesterday about a sports concept that these guys are working on, and they're talking about democratizing ownership of teams. And I said, okay, let's calm down there for a second. Like, I think that's fantastic. Like the Green Bay Packers basically did that. That's fantastic. I was like, but you're not saying that every single fan that has one share in the team is going to vote on what kind of hot dogs you're selling at the arena, right? They're like, no. There's going to be groups, and they'll be together, and then they'll be able to vote, in some sort of scale. So conceptually, that's very true. But I think you also have to kind of be realistic about things have to function. You have to move forward. There's a big difference between everybody having a say and nobody having a say. There's a balance in between.
Where is Village in the development process cycle?
We're fundraising right now. We have brought some partners in that have some technology that they're going to integrate into our platform to help launch it faster once all the different pieces are put together. And we're starting to develop, the early technology to kind of start to connecting those pieces and start to develop some of the new technologies. But fundraising certainly is especially with a tech company, is certainly very important. So that's really the main focus right now.
I see. So that part is not being used yet.
No, not yet.
So was it more production in the past that the company that you were focused on?
Mainly production, yeah. And like our own and helping others. So creating our own content and producing that, figuring out how to get it done and doing that, and then being production company service providers for others. That's what we were doing. We paused that a little bit between COVID and focusing on this. A lot of people have been coming and saying, let's work on projects together again. So we're exploring some opportunities there right now as well.
Yes, but you have 15 years experience really knowing how the business works, how a production works. And to some extent, you can scratch your own itch when you're building Village, because the difficulties, the conflicts, and how to make the process better.
That's the theory we're working with. Yeah, that I'm the guy who can help figure that out. But when you do it, at a certain point, it starts to become instinct. You feel it. You know this is about to go down this path, and I have the tools to kind of help keep it on track or help move it forward. So yeah, that's definitely the whole model.
So it sounds like Village will mean different things to different people, because if you're the creative, it might match you with hiring people on your team. If you're the finance side, you may be able to use algorithms to help sort like what projects are interesting to you.
Oh, that's very good. You got it. You hit it exactly on that. That's exactly right. That's actually the whole point of it. If you're an investor, you get pitched all the time. And most of the time you get pitched on ideas that just don't fit you for whatever the reason may be. Maybe the wrong money, maybe the wrong passion about it. And so our whole model is creating those matching algorithms that will find you. So if you are an investor, you create your profile and you decide, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm open to. This is what I want you to bother me with. I still have access to check everything out I want. And God bless you. You can go look at the platform and everything, and there's 1,000 projects. Knock yourself out if you want to look. But you're a busy person. You don't have a lot of time. You want to make decisions as quickly as possible. You want the information. Let's match you with the projects that match what you want. And I've met with investors that are like, I'm not a film investor, but I like investing in film projects or artistic projects, but I really like it if they're right near my house. Okay. Average person doesn't do that. When you're on LinkedIn, you don't look in investors that live near me, but they're real, or I like films that talk about food or whatever. But people don't ask those questions. I mean, that's the whole misconception with algorithms. Like an algorithm is as good as the questions that you built into it. It can only search what you ask it to search. It's always when people get upset at their computers and like, oh, this computer's so stupid. Yes, it is. You're the one who's screwing it up. The computer did not do anything wrong today. It's you. So that's part of what I think what we've figured out and we will implement is if you go about it in a different way and you really look at what people really are looking for, you can help them find it. And to me, that's a beautiful thing.
So Jay, in your view, what does the roadmap look like? You're fundraising, you have to develop like software or programming, and then you get people using it as a beta version?
It'll actually work hand in hand. So the way we have it mapped out is we will be onboarding as we're developing with friends. And luckily, I'm very, very lucky. I have a lot of people that I've worked with, that I've known, that are in the industry, like people working in different capacities, investor friends that I have that are interested, that would work with us as we're developing, and fans. And we're going to be integrating all of them in. Even though the automation won't all be there, we'll manually be bringing them onto the platform, showing them what we're developing, giving them every step we're doing this. Let me show you some examples, engaging them so that when we launch, which we're predicting will be roughly 18 months from when we start full-time developing, you'll go there and there'll be thousands and thousands of people already on the platform. There'll be tons of projects to already look at. There'll be profiles. There'll be all sorts of data that you can start as a regular person coming in that you've never heard of us before till you just discover us at that point. So that it's already up and running. It isn't going to be like, hey, we're here, check us out. And like, well, there's nothing there. Why should I be there? That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to be doing all of that. So manually doing things that we will be automating, which will help us in the automation, tools that we'll develop because we'll see okay, this took too long. Oh, this is easy the way it is. Let's just copy that. Let's create this new stuff like that. So that's basically the model.
How does it work right now? Is it all about your network and what pitches are being sent and come across your desk?
Pretty much, yeah. It's very manual. There's not a lot of automation. There's very limited analysis that's being done. It's getting to the right person at the right time. Like you can get to the person at the wrong time. And I have tons of friends that have had like, oh, I just pitched HBO, or I just spoke to this investor and they just invested in some other project. Like I missed them by 2 days. Yeah. So, there's just a lot of inefficiencies. And it still is unfortunate. It's a lot of who which I think that's life. I mean, that's so many things are like that and that's okay. But I think there's ways to kind of tap that down a little bit. And kind of just make it a little bit easier for people to navigate.
Okay, so I'm seeing kind of like there's a Match.com element. There's like an investor element to the platform. Can it be like a crowdfunding?
Yeah. There's a whole social media interaction plot. There's a whole part like where kind of like a Facebook or a LinkedIn newsfeed sort of environment where people can post, people can interact with another, different groups for fans that want to just talk about type of films that they like and all that sort of cool stuff. The model is that a project will go through its verification through the technical analysis and all the algorithms that will go through to verify and vet that a project is viable. Once it gets to that point in the fundraising, there'll be different levels of fundraising. So there'll be the crowd that can get in for a certain percentage that they can invest in it as, crowdfunding equity. There'll be a component that will be for just equity investors that will be, writing much bigger checks. We're going to put all the different packages together to make that process as easy as possible. The idea is to get through that stage as quick. Let's get this movie made or this TV show made. Let's not spend 2 years trying to find the money. That's not the idea.
Talk about the potential for sort of big data. to be incorporated as well?
There's no question about it. I mean, certainly it's important for us to protect everybody that comes there. We're not looking to do anything negative. We're not, we're obviously going to need data to kind of do analysis, but we have to protect everybody all the way through. We'll be fully transparent about that. I think that we're going to have a lot of information that's going to be very, very valuable. I mean, to make it easier for filmmakers to make decisions about what projects to what scripts to write next. What's the market saying? What's the information out there? I think it'll be great for investors to be able to look at trends to see where they want to go. Interesting for fans to learn. So yeah, I think it's certainly going to be part of it for sure.
Well, I was thinking even in terms of like risk analysis, that you're analyzing the data of what types of scripts and maybe even what budgets look like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the whole process to get it to that viability. So before it even gets to the fundraising part, all those tools are being done. So yeah, sorry, maybe I kind of skipped, maybe jumped over that a little too quickly. So when a script gets submitted, it's going to be analyzed and there's going to be comparative analysis to thousands and thousands of other scripts that have been happened to see just the quality of the script, the interaction of the characters, all the viability from purely a script perspective. Like there's a logical reason that the script is a good script and why it will be successful. Same thing then goes with the budget to make sure that it's the right amount of money for that project and spent in the right places so that you can properly really see what makes the most sense so that when an investor looks at it, they're looking at it as from an investment perspective. So using all that data that's out there, data that we're going to be continuing to add on to through everything that gets submitted. We'll have more and more every day. We'll have more information. Being able to do that and do predictive analysis to see the likelihood of success of a project. I mean, there's no guarantees, as we know in life, but you want to put everything in the best possible position for success. And that's really what the model's about. It's all getting it to that point because right now it is too hit or miss. Sometimes it's just really impossible to know. It's just a guess. I mean, you use the best you can, but it's because I say it's a good film makes a good film. No, we want to use the data for sure to kind of give us the best things. And yes, there's that gut instinct too, and there's that human voting to it as well. But I think having that data there, it's going to make everybody feel a lot more secure in their decision making.
Well, it sounds very exciting to build using technology and community all for filmmaking.
Yeah, exactly.
So you referenced like you compared it to fashion, which I know that you have experience in like fashion companies and clothing companies. You talked a little bit about like hospitality and clubs. I think that I saw that you had a business with Mickey Rourke, which
I did.
Very diverse businesses. What is it that you love about the business of filmmaking?
I think the ability to touch people, connect people on a very deep level and have a lasting impact. I think filmmaking, storytelling, really in general, can do that, and you can do it at scale. You can touch, when you do an event at a club or you do something, it's great and it's fun and it's a great experience, and you can't duplicate that. But that's the beginning and that's the end of it. Yes, the memory's with you forever, but that's that. If you make a film, it can be watched over and over again. It can be seen all over the world. Just the camaraderie of everybody on a set working together, just trying to get this one thing done. And if you've ever been on a film set, and we will definitely be shooting to show people that you can't imagine the energy and the intensity of getting like one little scene right, or one little piece of, the cup is in the wrong place and somebody running clear across the set to make sure the cup is in the right place. And all that sort of stuff that just touches people. And I think that what we're doing and other people are working in different ways to do that. We can have a real impact that you just can't have in any other way. And it's not about, you don't have to make a film about whales to get people to pay attention to the oceans. You can intertwine that into any sort of other story to kind of make it interesting, to get people inspired, to get people to be nicer to one another, to think about other things. And I think that connectivity and that community building that can happen through storytelling and filmmaking, and I think that's just a beautiful thing. And I like doing that.
That is a beautiful thing. And I have a very limited experience on the set of a film. It was a small independent film. I think it was shot in New York City in like 19 days or something like that. But, you know, even at that level where they were, you know, they were filming on like a shoestring budget, but it was still cool to see. And, you know, to see actors, to see behind the scenes was cool for me. I got to play the ukulele for about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it is cool. I mean, it really, really is. It is quite cool. I mean, it's interesting because you don't really get to see it. I mean, we're in New York. We're very lucky to see that. You know, quite often New York has been historically, you know, ups and downs here and there, but historically very supportive of the film community. And, you know, yeah, it's a pain in the ass when they block your street and you can't get parking. Also, yeah. But it's pretty cool. I mean, it's, you know, I still get excited, you know, when I see it, whether it's a small film, whether it's a super, you know, I remember seeing them. They shut a street down in Soho in the middle of the summer and they had snow machines. And it was like, what are you doing? It's like 95 degrees. Like, what are you doing? Like, but they had to get it out. It was like some movie that had to get done in time and they just had to do it. And then, you know, the cranes and they're shooting in a 3rd floor apartment. That's cool. I mean, it's just really, but I've also done that. We've done those tiny little movies that they're like, we barely have money for anything. And you just get it done. And it's just, there's something special about it. Something very special about it.
Yeah, it's cool to actually see whether it's a big production or small one, but to see it projected on the big screen, sitting in a theater.
Yeah, it's huge.
That is special. Yeah. So you clearly have this love for business and solving problems. I noticed when I went to your Facebook page, perhaps like supporting people's birthday charities more than any other Facebook page that I've ever seen. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on philanthropy and giving back?
I can actually. So thank you. Wow, you've really done a lot of research. I'll hit the birthday thing first. I'll hit the charity thing. My father and I were always diligent about knowing people's birthdays and reaching out to them and wishing them a happy birthday. And I still do that to this day. Which has gotten trickier with social media because now I have 5,000 Facebook friends, which is ridiculous, but I do. So, you know, sometimes 20 of them have a birthday on the same day and it's a lot of notes to send. But I think philanthropy is part of what we all should be doing as humans, whatever that means to you. It doesn't have to necessarily mean giving money if you don't have it, but you should always do something to give back. You should always be there to help other people, whatever that may be. And I think also growing up in New York, raised by my dad, you help someone with their groceries, or you check on your neighbor who you know is not feeling well or whatever. And if they need a couple of bucks, you give it to them, or you give them food, or whatever you do. But as I've gotten older and I've seen charity, I've seen how they work, it's a little tricky too. You know, it's a lot of charities, and how do you decide? And you see over time that people gravitate towards a charity that touched them, because you can't say that there's a bad cause out there. You know, every type of cancer sucks. I mean, every poverty is terrible. You can go on and on about all these terrible things. But I don't care how much money you have. You can't solve every single global problem. So I just think it's important to kind of, whatever you do, you do. And I say that to people, like, I'm not giving you tons of money, but if I can give you $18, I mean, that's a Jewish thing. 18 means life in Hebrew. So, you know, I can give not every day of the week or every month, but I can do this, and it's not the end of the world for me, and it's fine. And we actually have built that into the platform, that there's a charity component built into it, which I'm really actually excited about, that every project, when it submits, has to attach itself to a charity. The charity doesn't have anything to do with the film. It has to just be a verified real charity. It can't be Joe's charity, unless Joe's is a nice, legitimate charity. But nothing against the people named Joe out there. But the
qualified charity.
Yeah. But the point is that you have to do that from the beginning. And the logic behind that is that if you do it from the beginning, it's just part of what you do. It is one part. You don't have to think about it afterwards, like, oh, I'm going to give 10%. No, you don't have to think about it. It's already built in. It's coming. You go do what you do. This is built into your system already. And I think at the same time, no matter what you're doing in any business, film in particular, or music or any entertainment, you're asking people for their help. Now, whatever that may be, you're either asking them to help you work, you're asking to help them to give you money, you ask them to buy or support your product. The least you could do is give something back. So every project will have to attach itself to a charity. A percentage of what they raise goes to the charity, and a percentage of the net profits goes to charity in perpetuity. And I just think it's the right thing to do. And I think if you just build it in, nobody's going to be like, I can't believe I gave all this money to charity, because you never saw that money in the first place. So it's all good. So I just think it's a good thing. I think it's important.
That's a very cool component. Jay, I'd like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
I think that for me personally, you mean?
Yeah, you personally.
I think that if success, I guess, is being able to help others. If something you did or something that has happened has helped others, I think that's success. So whether a building is built and it helps others, that's a successful building. Not that pretty or not pretty. I mean, helping people and doing good. I think that's success. I don't think money is success. I don't think toys are success. They're nice, mind you. I still remember that kid with those Batman toys. So they are nice. It's absolutely, there's nothing wrong with them, and I don't fault anybody for having more toys than the other. But I think that when you do something that is greater than you and others are benefiting, to me, I think that's success.
How about a blockbuster film?
I would be more than happy to take that. But also, that's the part. The people have said that, like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to have this platform. You're not going to be producing films anymore. I was like, but I'm going to be involved with thousands of films around the world that are going to be doing good. Like, how can I beat that? Like, I don't need to. Sure, we'll be at the Academy Awards and we'll probably be doing the after parties, but I don't need to go up on stage to win an award. If I could be like, hey, these guys went through our platform. Like, that cinematographer is on our platform, and that film got funded because of this, and our fans. There you go. There's success. That's success. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Jay. Thanks for sharing your stories with us, your experiences with us. Tell the Inspired Money listeners and viewers where they can follow you and learn more.
I'm on LinkedIn, so I mean, certainly connect with me there. At Ephelants, I think that's what we are on pretty much everything. Instagram. We're not doing a lot of posting right now, but we will. But anything new or cool that's happening, that's definitely the easiest way to find us. Website, is ephelants.com right now, and then we'll do a village site later when that's ready to go.
Where did the Ephelants name come from?
That's how I said elephants when I was a kid. All my previous companies had my name in it, which I was determined to not ever do again, ever. And we were brainstorming for months when I was like, I'm going to start this new business with all my friends. And I reached out to anybody I know. I was like, I need a name. And they're like, oh, production, tech, blah, blah, blah. All these crazy names and all these acronyms and everything. And I woke up one morning, I was like, it's Ephelants. And they were like, what? And I was like, it's Ephelants. That's how I said elephants when I was a kid. They're like, but it doesn't mean anything. I was like, exactly. Now let's focus on getting this thing going. And that's how it came from. Yeah.
Rhymes with excellence, and just it's elephants, but transpose the L and the PH.
Exactly.
I'll have that in the show notes. Thanks so much, Jay.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I loved hearing about the entrepreneur's mindset. It's a combination of problem solving and having the tenacity and stubbornness to not accept the status quo. If you have an idea, go after it and test it out in the market. I'm also inspired by the way that Jay supports so many of his friends' birthday charity asks. The takeaway is that just small donations can positively impact your relationships and your life. For Jay, those little steps are growing into him formally building philanthropy into his business, resulting in maximum impact. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment, please post a comment or share it in the Inspired Money Makers Facebook group at inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. Thanks for tuning in to the end. Before you go, make sure that you subscribe to my email that goes out every 2 weeks. It's investment focused, and the Runnymede investment team highlights data, news, and events that we think are worth sharing. Subscribe at inspiredmoney.fm/newsletter. Thank you for joining me on this mission. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.